Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the Grapplers Academy. Today we're back with week 2 in the back attack series. Last week we briefly touched over a couple of control points, so I talked about some hand fighting, and we went over the basics of securing a submission and a couple of defensive concepts.
Yeah, and also sort of keeping the hips controlled with an alternative way of having hooks. So today we're going to sort of build on that, and we're going to sort of look at, well, I'm going to look at sort of regaining the back and the importance of keeping the seatbelt grip. And Bonn, we're going to look at the body triangle on it.
Yeah, I like a good body triangle. It's somewhat uncomfortable for the person on the receiving end, but there's a couple of details that you've got to look at from the point of view of putting it on. As well, there is a potential of getting yourself leg locked if you keep your feet in the wrong position. So maybe we'll talk about that briefly as well. But you all saw my legit escapes last week. So I thought it was a good idea this week to look at how to re-achieve the back position if your opponent's got as good escapes as I have.
There we go.
So we're going to go through that first.
That's it. So, but for me, whenever I sort of show back control, I really like to emphasise the importance of the seatbelt grip and sort of keeping this. Not only is it your control of the upper body and your main attacking tools, but also for me it's important to maintain the control when you start to lose control of the hips. So we're going to start here and we're going to fall to the side. Now Bonn's going to get his hips out, and as he starts to escape his hips away from me, I'm going to maintain this grip with the seatbelt grip. Now from here I can't stay on my back, so I'm going to turn and I'm going to go belly down. And again, while I'm here, I'm pinching the elbows and I'm pulling Bonn tight in towards me. So as Bonn starts moving around, having a nice wide base, legs feed out, hips down to the floor, and a tight seatbelt grip helps maintain this position. Now I want to try and get him back sitting up, and then also get my hooks back in for the back control. So as we do this, just move a little bit over. We're going to look at how we're going to do this while maintaining good control over the body. Now I'm using my shoulder behind the head, and this is where I'm going to start the movement. So I want to try and bring Bonn's nose towards his belly button. So firstly I'm going to start to pull him in tight and drive his head forward with my shoulder. As I start doing this, it takes away Bonn's ability to bridge, and it also keeps me in a stronger position now because I'm starting to disengage his spine a little bit. From here, I'm going to bring my knees under and start to push my hands into the chest and roll him forward, and almost trying to double him over and bend him in half. Now once I get to the position where I can get my knees behind his back and keeping this seatbelt grip nice and tight, I'm going to slip my bottom hook in first and pull him back into here and take the second hook, or from last week's video, the hip control with the hook on the outside. Again, the emphasis for that as well is make it as uncomfortable for your opponent as possible. Like I'm trying to imagine that I'm rolling Bonn up like a sleeping bag to get all the air out of him. It's going to minimise the sort of ability to escape, and also minimise any sort of power or strength that they're going to have during this movement.
I mean, to be fair, even at that slow pace, that's kind of what it felt like. He was being very nice to me there. That's a super gnarly position.
Yeah.
I feel very crunched up, not nice on the spine. It takes a lot of the breath out of you as well. So let's have a quick look at the body triangle off the back of that. Again, another good point of control. Again, kind of limits the ability of your opponent to jump the hips and start escaping out. But from the same seatbelt position that Si was just talking about, and again, it might depend. This one sometimes depends on leg length to be able to succeed with this one. But Si's talked a couple of times before about not being able to succeed on this one. I've not got particularly long legs, and it probably is some degree of the same way of setting up a triangle attack as well as getting the correct angle with it. I like to use my bottom hand on the seatbelt to bring the leg up and across onto the hip first as I start to drop to the side that is the top of the seatbelt, so the side that's coming over his shoulder. We're going to start leaning over, and as I'm going, I'm going to grab my leg and pull that up into position and cinch it off in the same way that you would do with a normal triangle. Now of course with this one we want to make sure that we're above and high above the hips, So the thinnest point of his body is going to be actually sitting on the hips on that. Once we're in this position here, we don't want to have the foot in the middle, because I can wrap over the top of that and start putting pressure down. I'm essentially going to footlock myself from that position. If we just turn to the side, once I've dropped through to the side and grab my foot and pull it to the side, I want to try and hide my foot around the back. Preferably, I'm going to hook the back of his hamstring with my shoelaces and put a little bit of an elevator in there as well to take away his ability to base and start to turn. Still got control of the seatbelt, and depending on how nasty you want to be to your opponent, you can start putting a good squeeze on the torso there. Again, not a particularly comfortable one, but a good way of keeping control. It kind of limits the options that you've got. And like we talked about in last week's video, the real importance with back control, and the reason why you probably don't get the success with finishes that you want, is rush into the finish. That point of control is really important first, so you've got to make sure that you shut your opponent's movement down before you start attacking for the subs.
Yeah, definitely. And also work on tiring them out as well. Like, a fresh opponent's going to be much more difficult to submit. So if you can tire your opponent, even if it's from the back, whether it's a case of going through almost letting them escape and then going for the first retake and then letting them escape again and going through it again, they're going to get really fatigued. And also they're going to be more likely to get the submission. Or if you can get them into the body triangle and just really squeeze the air out of them and keep fighting and attacking the neck, again they're going to get really fatigued, mentally drained as well, and then they're going to you've got to find the submission that little bit easier.
Yeah, as I just said as well, on top of being physically draining, it's quite disheartening when you think you've achieved an escape and then you just get put back in the same position again and again and again. And particularly when you figure out that that's what your opponent's trying to do to you, just to weigh you down a little bit, is a good psychological battle going on.
Oh, definitely. And we covered it in one of the audio episodes, talking about systems and katas. So feel free to go back and listen to that again and sort of get the reference there and start building your own katas from there as well.
Go back and check out the first video in the series on the back attacks. Also check out the series on attacking the turtle to see a couple of different options that we've got for taking the back as well and getting into that seatbelt position with the hooks in that we're talking about today. And also go and check out the audio version of the podcast as well, which has got a whole archive of the stuff that we've been putting up from the beginning now, everything from the Dan Strauss interview to the Shane Curtis interviews on there, Matt Thorpe's on there, Violet Bennett and Laura's on there, Sam Quinn's on there.
Sam Quinn's on there. We've got a heap of topics on there as well, where it's sort of great for beginners, advanced players, someone just looking for a different take on their game as well. And on the platforms where you can rate us, please leave us a review and 5 stars as well.
Yeah, it helps us understand the content that you're enjoying, that we're putting out, and just make sure that we're putting out the stuff that you want to see and nothing that you don't want to see.
Oh, definitely. Before you click off this video, hit like, subscribe and share.